Now it's time for some Gemini examples in Hollywood and beyond. Are you ready for some Gemini celebrities? There are many categories for Gemini. The first category is writers and word masters. Geminis love words, and because they're a mutable sign and they're flexible and adaptable, they're very quick, witty, and know exactly what to say in the way they want to say it. So let's look at some of these examples. If you look at the writers, C.S. Lewis, J.K. Rowling, J.R.R. Tolkien, they have a lot of similarities. Look at C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, both Pluto and Neptune in Gemini. Now, C.S. had his moon in Gemini, and Tolkien had his midhaven. His midhaven is his public persona. Makes sense, he was famous for being a writer. Neptune is fantasy, and Pluto is tragedy. And if you really see their writings, it's a mix of fantasy and tragedy. It's very, very, very in alignment with those planets. Then you have Anne Frank. She was a Gemini, and her Mercury was in Gemini in retrograde. So she was born in a Mercury retrograde, which makes her more of an internal writer, aka writing in her diary. Then you got Shakespeare. He's got Venus in there with his Gemini, which really, really brings out the beauty of words, which is very much his writings. And look at Stephen King. He's got one planet in Gemini, but then he has 3 planets in the Gemini house, which really emphasizes his Gemini skills. And last but not least, we have Notorious B.I.G. and Lauryn Hill, both rappers. Both Sun in Gemini and Mercury in Gemini. Sun is the spotlight. They were out there. They weren't writers. They were out there in the spotlight as performers. And both Mercury and Gemini, which is communication. Very quick with their words. This is the next category for Gemini, which is communicators. Now, I have 4 very different examples. Let's go through them. The first example is Mark Zuckerberg. If you look at his chart, he has midhaven in Gemini, which is his public persona. He's famous for Gemini. He also has south node, which is basically his habit. But he also has north node, which is very, very complicated. So he's learning Gemini, but he also falls back on the Gemini house. Very complicated, but he's got a lot of Gemini nonetheless, right? Gemini is the communicator. You want to communicate with others. Hello, he created Facebook, the communication machine. The second example is Morgan Freeman. He is a Gemini with Sun in Gemini, and he also has his South Node in Gemini, which is his security blanket, his habit, his comfort zone. He is known for his voice. If you think about it, he is always, obviously he's an actor, so he's just so talented as an actor, but he's also always doing voiceovers. Big, big thing for him. The third example for communicator, Gemini, is JFK. He had the most well-known speech of any president, and he was known to be one of the best speakers as a president. Makes sense. He had Sun, Venus, which is passion, love, and beauty, and South Node in Gemini. Now, if you also think about it, his Gemini kind of also did him in a little bit because he did have that lying streak with the cheating. But we won't give him that. We'll give him some good stuff because he was a good president. And the last one is Jim Carrey. Now let's discuss Jim Carrey. He is such a perfect example of what mutable energy is. He's so flexible and adaptable. I mean, just the way that he can move his face and his facial expressions, and he's just such a good example of mutable Gemini energy. Now, he's not a Gemini, but his moon is in Gemini and his south node. And look at how many planets he has in the Gemini house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in the Gemini house. That is a lot of Gemini. And it's very, very, very clear because he's very quick and very witty with his words. The third category for Gemini is professional fronters. Now, what does that really mean? It means that Geminis are great at putting on that professional front and showing only what they need to show the perfect, put together side of themselves. And there's many example of professional fronters. There's so many we can dive into, but I decided to go with the female goddess professional fronter. If you look at these four women, they're so good at just putting on this amazing, beautified front where everything looks so perfect on the outside. But do we really, really know if it's perfect on the inside? Not so sure. Let's look at all four of them. So clearly, Marilyn Monroe is a great example of this. She was a Gemini and had Mercury in Gemini. She very much lived a double life. She had two sides to her personality. And it is kind of what did her in. But that side to her that is that iconic beauty is really the skill set of her Gemini. And then you have Heidi Klum, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, all in Gemini. This woman is a powerhouse. If you think about all the things she does, she's a model, she's a mother, she hosts Project Runway. She does so many, so many things. And it's very much her Gemini, her flexible, adaptable, changeable nature. And of course, she's gorgeous. Then you have Angelina Jolie, Sun in Gemini, South Node, comfort zone, and Mercury. She was born in a Mercury retrograde. So it goes very inward with her communication. And you can kind of tell because she kind of comes off almost mysterious a little bit. She's not very like vocal, if you will, when she's in interviews, but then eventually she'll become chatty. But such a perfect example of Gemini. She's always putting on that front. You never really know what her problems are, right? She always looks perfect to the surface. And last but not least, Natalie Portman. Now, Natalie Portman could have been in the communicator category as well because she's such an amazing actress. And her acting skills are really about how she can communicate and convey words. But she also does this whole perfect dance where you just look at her and you're like, where's your flaw, girl, right? So Sun, Mars, and South Node in Gemini for Natalie Portman. Last category for Gemini is Gemini gone wrong. These are four examples of Gemini just gone wrong. Let's start with Joan Rivers. So Geminis, like I said before, are professional fronters. They want to come off perfect, right? And a lot of times it's all about the surface level of things, the physical body. So Joan Rivers is Gemini gone wrong because she's way tried to over-perfect her facial physique. Okay, too much plastic surgery. Love you, Joan. You're funny, but you're trying too hard with your Gemini. Sun in Gemini, Mercury, Venus, and she has all three of those in the Gemini house, so double Gemini. She's a Gemini in the Gemini house. The next example is John Edwards, political figure. Sun in Gemini, Moon in Gemini, Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. He is the epitome of the Gemini because he lived a complete double life. He was having an affair, his mistress was pregnant, he tried to throw money to hide it from the world because he was running for vice president, and all the while, his wife was dying of cancer. This is just heart-wrenching. This is an example of Geminis so separating their heart and their mind to the point where they don't even have a heart anymore. They just have a logical mind. And the last two examples are Bernie Madoff and Charles Ponzi. Now, you've heard of the phrase Ponzi scheme, right? Charles Ponzi created that. But what's ironic is Bernie Madoff did a Ponzi scheme, and they both have almost the exact same birth chart. They both have about 4 to 5 planets in Taurus. Now, that was last month's sign. And Taurus is all about money, so it makes sense. They were both these money people, but they were lying to people about money. Charles Ponzi, South Node in Gemini, Bernie Madoff, Mars in Gemini. It's no coincidence that they pretty much have the same birth chart. And another example of how separating the mind and the heart, the Gemini way, can sometimes lead to a double life, trying to be perfect like Joan Rivers, or like Bernie Madoff and Charles Ponzi, the biggest liars of society. Stay tuned for more Celebrity Spotlight Astrotherapy videos.